A company filed paperwork to raise $75 billion, dated it 48 hours before its biggest Starship rocket ever left the pad, and almost nobody read the part that should scare them. On the evening of May 20th, 2026, SpaceX walked into the SEC and filed its S-1 with Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, leading a syndicate of 21 banks. If you have never seen one, an S-1 is the document a private company has to file before it sells shares to the public on exchanges like NASDAQ. It is the legal confession. Every risk, every revenue line, every weird arrangement that the founders would rather you skim past, by law, it all has to be in there. Most of them are dry, hundreds of pages of accountants covering themselves. You read 3 paragraphs and your eyes glaze over. This one is different, because the document SpaceX filed does not describe a rocket company. Not really. It describes something much bigger and much stranger. And if you read all the way to the back, you hit a clause that I would argue is the single oddest sentence ever written into a public financial filing. I will get to it. Stay with me, because that last clause changes how you read everything before it. First, the number. SpaceX is asking the public for at least $75 billion, at a valuation of up to $2 trillion. Let me put that next to something real. When Facebook went public, it raised about $16 billion. That was a record-shattering tech initial public offering at the time. Alibaba, the biggest initial public offering in history for years, pulled in around $25 billion. SpaceX wants 3 times that, in one go. And the $2 trillion valuation would make this single company worth more than the entire annual economic output of most countries on Earth. We are not talking about a big number. We are talking about a number that does not really fit in the category anymore. So how do you justify that? Here's where the filing does something clever. It doesn't sell you rockets. Buried in the prospectus is a figure, a $28.5 trillion total addressable market. Total addressable market is just a fancy way of saying all the money we could theoretically ever touch. And 28 trillion is not the rocket launch business. The global launch market is tiny by comparison, a few tens of billions a year. So what's SpaceX counting? Everything. Satellite internet beamed to every phone on the planet through Starlink, with average revenue per user projections that dwarf traditional telecom. The data networks that run underneath that. Defense contracts tied to NASA's Artemis program. Artificial intelligence through their xAI subsidiary running Grok. Manufacturing in orbit. The pitch isn't "we'll fly your satellite for you." The pitch is the whole sky, the internet running through it, and whatever else investors are willing to dream up on top. They stop selling rides to orbit. They're selling the orbit. And then there's the thing sitting on the books that makes you do a double take. The filing folds in the xAI side of Musk's empire, running Grok and massive Colossus data centers, and that segment is bleeding. It burned $6.4 billion in 2025, then another $2.5 billion in just the first 3 months of 2026. Do the math on that pace. This is a rocket prospectus carrying an artificial intelligence bonfire right there in the financials. Money going out the door faster than most companies earn in a decade. Now, you could argue that's the bet. AI is the future, fold it in, let the rocket revenue carry the losses, while Grok and the AI infrastructure grows up. Maybe. But understand what you're actually buying. You're not buying a profitable launch business with a little science project on the side. You're buying a launch business strapped to one of the most expensive cash incineration machines in the tech world. And the prospectus is asking you to believe both halves pay off. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for anyone planning to put money in. On May 4th, just before the filing, SpaceX ran a 5-for-1 stock split. Splits are normal. They slice each share into smaller pieces so the price per share looks more affordable. Fine. But pay attention to the share structure underneath it. There are 2 classes. There's the stock you and I could buy on NASDAQ. And then there's Class B, the super voting shares. Each Class B share carries far more voting power than a regular one. And after all the arrangements, Elon Musk controls 85.1% of the vote. Sit with that. You can pour your savings into this company. You can own a real legal sliver of it. And you will have functionally no say in anything. Not who sits on the board. Not how the money gets spent. Not whether the AI furnace keeps burning through Colossus data centers. 85% of the vote means it is one man's decision, and your shares are along for the ride. You're a passenger who paid for the ticket but cannot touch the wheel. And then you reach the clause, the one I told you about. The filing describes a grant of 1 billion Class B shares. 1 billion. The grant vests, meaning it actually pays out on a single condition. Not a revenue target. Not a profit milestone. Not a stock price. It vests when SpaceX establishes a 1 million person colony on Mars. Read that again. A payout written in legal language in a document filed with the US government. That triggers when a city of 1 million people exists on a planet no human has ever set foot on. There is no Mars colony. There is no Mars town. There isn't a single Mars footprint. And the prospectus has a clause that pays out against it anyway. It's a financial instrument written against a place that doesn't exist yet. That's not a metaphor. That's in the paperwork. What does that tell you? It tells you what this whole filing actually is. The rocket numbers, the AI losses through Grok development, the $28 trillion sky. All of it points at one destination. The Mars clause isn't a footnote. It's the thesis. This company isn't trying to be a good business in the way Wall Street usually means it. It's trying to fund a second planet, and it's asking the public to chip in. So what does that mean for you sitting there wondering whether to buy a share? Be honest about the gap. There's owning a piece of something and there's controlling it. With this stock, you get the first and almost none of the second. You'd be handing real money to a company that loses billions on AI every quarter through Grok and data center expansion, run by one person who holds nearly all the votes, with its biggest promised payout tied to a Mars colony that may not happen in your lifetime if it happens at all. That's the bet, not whether SpaceX will launch more rockets. It clearly will. The bet is whether a company can be worth $2 trillion while pointing most of its ambition at a planet 50 million miles away, and whether you're comfortable funding that with zero control over how it goes. Some people will read all that and run. Some people will read all that and feel something light up. Because there's a version of this where you're not buying a stock at all. You're buying a tiny stake in the first serious attempt to make humans a two-planet species. And you're fine with the idea that you'll never have a vote, never see a dividend, and maybe never see the colony. You just want to have been part of it. I don't think there's a clean answer. I think that's the point. So go back to the pad. 2 days before any of this went public, before Goldman Sachs and the lawyers hit submit, there was a Starship sitting out there. The V3, the biggest one yet, waiting for its debut flight. The filing was already written, already dated. The $75 billion ask, the $2 trillion valuation, the AI losses from Grok development, the Mars clause, all of it sitting in a folder, timed to land right alongside that rocket. And it makes you ask the only question that actually matters here. Is this a company asking Wall Street for $75 billion? Or is this a man asking the public to fund a second planet and using a stock filing to do it? If this S1 hit your inbox tomorrow and you had the cash, would you buy a single share? 1. Yes or no, and tell me why in the comments. I read them. I'll see you in the next one.